talks again about the benefit of a wife. So, as a fort commander very easily conquers invading plunderers by taking shelter of a wife, one can conquer the senses, which are unconquerable in the other social orders. And Prabhupada elaborates by saying, the bodily senses are considered plunderers of the fort of the body. The wife is supposed to be the commander of the fort, and therefore, whenever there is an attack on the body by the senses, it is the wife who protects the body from being smashed. The sex demand is inevitable for everyone, but one who has a fixed wife is saved from the onslaught of the sense enemies. A man who possesses a good wife does not create a disturbance in society by corrupting virgin girls. Without a fixed wife, a man becomes a debauchee of the first order and is a nuisance in society, unless he is a trained brahmachari, vanaprashta, or sannyasi. And all those orders are all celibate. Unless there is a rigid and systematic training of the brahmachari by the expert spiritual master, and unless the student is obedient, it is sure that the so-called brahmachari will fall prey to the attack of sex. There are so many instances of fall down, even for great yogis. A grahasta, which is a householder, a married man, is saved, however, because of his faithful wife. Sex life is the cause of material bondage, and therefore it is prohibited in the three ashrams and is only allowed in the grahasta ashram, which is the marriage ashram. The marriage, the grahasta, which is a husband, is responsible for producing first quality brahmacharis, vanaprashtas, and sannyasis, and all those three orders are all celibates.
In terms of like producing them, like as having kids and the kids being that of those orders?
Yes.
They're in Banter Brewing in the strip mall building. Strip mall building. Okay. Okay.
Do you hear this?
What in what way? I thought it's okay for him to engage, but it has to be through his wife. She's the one that keeps him in check.
Exactly.
And he brings the wife pleasure by just giving her whatever she wants, and then she gives him pleasure through children, as well as, I guess, like, how is she protecting or pleasing his senses? Is that specifically sex again, or like making him
Yes.
food? Like,
So the protection, which we talked about in an earlier scripture, is protection against becoming a debauchee. Later on, it said in the explanation that I mentioned that without a wife, a man becomes a debauchee of the first order. He is a nuisance in society. A man who possesses a good wife doesn't create a disturbance in society by corrupting virgin girls.
so it basically by default. I mean, obviously the man still has to like uphold his commitment and everything, but by default he is protected by having a wife. Is that correct?
Yes. What is he being protected from?
From debauchery,
Being a
right?
gigolo.
Yes. Okay. So he still has to like not do that regardless of the marriage, but the marriage that's what that's for. Okay.
Hmm. And times are a bit different now. The society, like I said, our society is sort of broken down. But imagine during Vedic times, or even earlier in this Yuga, earlier in Kali Yuga, when things hadn't completely degraded yet, right? Women, girls, live with their parents until they're married, right? Girls are protected by their parents, they're celibate, they're virgins. And just imagine some man who isn't married yet, he can't get control of his senses. He wants to have sex. So most married women are very chaste, very respectable, not easily influenced, right? Because they have their husbands to protect them. But,
Yep.
he might find a young girl and seclude her or try to persuade her to have sex with him. And now this girl is no longer a virgin. She's not going to be able to find a proper husband now. She could potentially get pregnant and not be married. And then it's just really bad. It sort of ruins the whole order of society because you're supposed to have a child with your husband. You're supposed to be, women are protected in marriage as well. They're protected from debauchees, they're protected from men who just want to enjoy them, nothing else. And when things are done outside of the order, it just messes everything up and it's really a disservice. It's really unfortunate for both people.
Well, what seems crazy is like I think that that understanding is still there that like having sex with someone who's not your husband is likely to result in just not a great relationship, if no relationship at all, as well as maybe not as much in non-religious circles like having sex outside of marriage, but I think it's pretty agreed upon that if you are not getting into a healthy relationship and there's red flags and you're just having sex to have sex and you get pregnant, that's not okay. Like that's obviously going to just result in like a child who has a broken home or just trauma growing up. It's just not going to be good. Like people understand that's
Mhm.
not good. Love and respect and understanding and communication and agreement and all that type of stuff should be had before having a child. Yet the protections are not in place, and many people don't want to conform to the way things have been done for thousands of years. Traditional marriages, or just in marriages in general, now we don't have traditional marriages anymore, and want to have sex before marriage. And having a baby is just like apparently just something to do. It just doesn't mean anything. It's not sacred anymore, and people are not putting the necessary protections in place because they want to essentially engage in their senses,
Mm,
not really not realizing the consequences. And it's like
mhm,
for a lot of problems in society, if we just look not too far back, the answers are there. And the system was not broken that we used to use. It has gotten broken and more broken over time. And we continue to stimulate our senses so much that we just want more, which is essentially what
mhm,
addiction is. And it's just like continually getting out of hand. And because of that, it's hard to go back to what used to work because it seems
mhm.
boring or unfulfilling or like what if somebody else like is better? We can't control our minds anymore. We just have gone fucking crazy.
I think about like standard of human behavior, and of like the God's laws. I think of them as like their standard, and they're like at level 100, let's say. And in every yuga, I think Satya Yuga might be the highest. At Satya Yuga, there's 100% adherence to the standard in God's law. Everyone follows the what's prescribed in the scriptures. There's no deviation. And as we go through the other yugas, it becomes gradually less and less adherence, and due to the influence of the age. So Kali is the lowest. There is the least amount of influence. There's the least amount of adherence, and there's a humongous influence in the negative direction. But with that, we still we're still held to generally held to the laws and the rules of adherence at the highest level. But we can't always get there because of the influence of such a negative age. So like women want to be protected. Men want to be providers.